The Arizona Cardinals are going to get down to business. Gambo had suggested earlier, again, not reporting, just like suggesting that a Trey McBride deal could be soon-ish. I'm sure they'd like to
They're
get
working
that done
on it,
before
yes.
free agency
Yep.
starts, right?
Yep. Working on it and hopeful that it could happen soon is the last thing I heard.
And certainly there are other guys on the roster they want to keep. We've talked about 6 players in particular, and there might be others, guys like Will Hernandez and Dennis Gardeck and Kaiser White, who, for goodness sakes, Nick Rollis named his kid after him. You kind of like to bring him back when you're going to name your kid after one of the players, but you never know how that's going to work. The motivation to get all of that done is because on Monday, free agency starts in the National Football League, and anybody you don't re-sign is eligible to go somewhere else. Trey McBride isn't, but you'd like to know what his cap number is so you can kind of work around that when free agency starts. So there's a bit of a deadline here that the Cardinals are working with when it comes to not only their own guys, but when it comes to Trey McBride as well. As far as what's out there and what they can go out and sign, the speculation, and when Monday rolls around, and probably even in the days leading up to Monday, Thursday, Friday, whatnot, the speculation will focus heavily on the 2 names that we've talked a lot about, Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. And today, Bill Barnwell, and I imagine he'll do offensive players with this tomorrow, Bill Barnwell came out with these are the best defensive free agents out there on the market right now. And when it came to edge rusher, he didn't have any elite players, but the one player he had in the next tier down, there was only one, and it was Josh Sweat. Same thing with defensive tackle. He didn't have any elite players listed, but there was only one player he had listed in the next category down, and that was Milton Williams. I mean, it's clear that if you're going to go shopping in that part of the store, it's the expensive part of the store, and those are the only 2 guys that are there. So if the Cardinals' goal is to get one of them, it's going to cost them a lot of money because those are the only 2 guys that are in that part.
Yeah, listen, a lot of people thought that Sweat could have won the Super Bowl MVP. I mean, he was so good, 7 pressures, 6 combined tackles, 2.5 sacks on that big stage. He's 28 years old. He's going to cash in big time. He appears to be the top guy in this class at that position. So this is a guy that was a 4th-round pick out of Florida State, has busted his ass to put himself in this position. There's going to be a lot of other teams that are interested in him. There's going to be a lot of other teams. So now you're dealing from a position of strength. You have knowledge of him that other teams may not have because of the connection with Gannon. It's still 2 years removed, but my understanding is that the Cardinals are absolutely interested in Sweat and Milton and want to try to get one of those guys, not both, but one of those guys, and are going to really push to try to make that happen.
Average annual salary projection is $25 million, according to Bill Barnwell. He writes about him. He turns 28 in March, so any team acquiring him would be in a position to capture a prime season as part of the guaranteed money on his deal. He says, look, he's got him as a tier 2 guy. He's probably closer to a 2.5 guy than a tier 2. But because he did so well in the Super Bowl, it's going to linger as teams make their bids in free agency. After that, I mean, in terms of the edge rusher position, there's nobody else in tier 2. There's nobody, period, in tier 1. There's nobody there. What's interesting is that if you go down a couple of tiers, and I'm going down to tier 4, borderline starters and high-end backups, he's got Baron Browning from the Arizona Cardinals listed in that category.
Yeah, because he played well when he was here. Like, Baron Browning played well. I mean, and that's why they want to, the Cardinals gave up a draft pick for him. He comes in here, he does a good job, and that's why they want to keep him. That's why I have him listed as one of the guys that the Arizona Cardinals, want to keep. Again, you're looking at a guy that's young. He's 26 years old. You traded for him. He kind of popped. No reason not to bring him back. So I do think that when I look at I actually think he's one of the priorities on the guys that I mentioned them wanting to bring back. I think he's one of the priority guys. Yeah.
The other one is Milton Williams, defensive tackle. Again, going by the tier system here, Barnwell doesn't have anybody in his tier 1. He does have Milton Williams in his tier 2. He's the only one he has in his tier 2. He projects his average annual salary to be about $20 to $25 million. The risk with him, and he writes this, he says, look, he's been productive on about 48% of his snaps for the Eagles, splitting time with Jordan Davis, occasionally rotating in for Jalen Carter. He's going to have a larger role with his team. He's 25. His best years are ahead of him. But I think that's the mystery with Milton Williams a little bit is he's been part of a rotation. He really hasn't played a lot, right? Like not a lot. Like when he gets paid this deal, if the Arizona Cardinals are giving him $25 million a year, he's not playing 48% of the snaps.
That's why there's a lot of is he going to be misvalued? Is he going to be overpriced? When it comes to that, he's going to get a lot of money. But again, the 25-year-old thing, the size, the athleticism, the pressure percentage, the hesitancies, you start to talk about, $20 million a year?
Maybe 25.
$20 to $25 million a year. Again, like you said, right? 4 seasons, 19 starts. 4 seasons, 19 starts.
It's concerning.
You're going to pay a guy $20 million, $25 million a year, and he hasn't been a starter. Now, part of that could be he was in a tough spot because they rotate a lot of guys. They rotate a lot of guys.
Most teams do, but it does. There's always maybe there's no bigger fear for me when it comes to free agency in the NFL than this simple fact: teams don't let good players go. They just don't. And so anytime you see a 25-year-old Milton Williams on the market, you think to yourself, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Or you see a 28-year-old Josh Sweat on the market, you think to yourself, what's wrong? Why is? And I know Philadelphia's
because they can't keep everybody. Because they just paid sake. They can't keep everybody.
But they can keep
sometimes guys through. Yeah, you
can keep
great
the guys
players
you really want to keep.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you really want to keep a guy, you can keep a guy and make decisions elsewhere. If you don't, you're kind of casting him back out in the ocean.
They could be looking at he was playing next to Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. He barely got double teamed. So he was a guy that benefited from 70% of the plays being single coverage. He wasn't double teamed. He just had to beat his man. So he was able to play well because a lot of the double teams went on other guys, not on him.
When it comes to defensive tackles, there was one other Cardinal that was mentioned at the position, tier 5, backups likely to net guaranteed money. Roy Lopez of the Cardinals made that list. Off-ball linebackers, not that the Cardinals are going to spend big money on this. Tier 3, Kaiser White was listed as a capable starter. Chris Barnes was listed in tier 5 as a backup likely to net guaranteed money. Now, the offensive guys will come tomorrow. I'll be curious to see where Kelvin Beachum is, where who's the other one? Evan Brown.
Evan Brown's a guy that they really like, really like him.
Yeah, LJ Collier, best I could tell, didn't make the list on this one, but I know he's a guy that you've mentioned they like as well. So, again, if you want to get deals done with these guys before they hit free agency, Monday's the deadline. Other than that, they could go wherever they want to go, and you lose your opportunity to bring them back.
Thanks for watching Burns and Gambo. Click to see more from the guys and hit the button in the middle to subscribe so you never miss a video from Arizona sports.